undisclosed location with her husband, but now she is said to be recovered, the second American now to recover, with the great help of the doctors and nursing staff at Emory University Hospital. And you got to wonder how much that experimental drug, what was it called, ZMapp,
what a difference that made.
May have made a difference in her recovery. Of course, they're working feverishly to try to come up with a vaccine to combat Ebola in Africa, and we heard about human trials that started, so they're still looking at maybe a couple of years out before they get a vaccine.
But for both of them to have walked out.
Yeah, it's terrific news.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, switching gears now, there's been a bit of controversy swirling around in Hollywood lately, and keeping with all of it can get a bit confusing.
And that's why we have attorney John Burns back with us today. He's going to break down all the juicy details of the latest celebrity legal happenings. Welcome back, John.
Thank you. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you too. All right, let's start with those nude pictures all over the internet. The hacker that put it all out there.
It's very significant. So obviously, a really substantial invasion of privacy. So a number of A-list female celebrities had their iCloud accounts hacked, and risque and nude photos were put on a board and then ultimately disseminated across the internet. So all the celebrities have really come out up in arms saying that they're going to really pursue this wholeheartedly and try to find the wrongdoers.
So could the hackers face criminal charges? I'm sure they could, but they could also face civil litigation against some of these actors.
Absolutely. We all remember back in 2012, a gentleman by the name of Christopher Cheney was found to have hacked into the personal email accounts of Scarlett Johansson, Mila Kunis, and he was sentenced to 10 years in jail, amongst other things. So the law is evolving and trying to catch up with what we call the unauthorized posting of images without people's permission. So a lot of people call it revenge porn, because you also see it in the relationship sector where people get out of a relationship and then post, sex pics online to get revenge at their wrongdoer, at their former relationship person too.
Yeah, but here they are, they haven't done anything, but their stuff is out there.
Exactly.
Well, what do you know about how close authorities are to catching these criminals? Do we know if they're hot on the chase?
I think they're trying their best. The FBI has gotten involved, so I think that's a substantial step. And a lot of people are claiming that not only should they prosecute the hacker, they should also prosecute people who continue to post the images online. But only 12 states allow you to prosecute individuals that post the images, and the websites that actually host the images are absolved of all responsibility by a federal statute basically called the Communication Decency Act, which allows third parties to post these images and the websites to be absolved of all responsibility. So it's very difficult to first tell who or where the picture originated and then ultimately determine who posted that image as well.
All right, we got to move on. And just when you thought Justin Bieber was done with his shenanigans, there you go. Something else happened.
He can't stay out of the headlines.
Yeah, back again, vacationing in Canada over the weekend, and he was arrested for assault and dangerous driving stemming from a fight he got into when his ATV that he was driving collided with the minivan. So he was arrested, ultimately released based upon his appearance at a hearing on September 29th. So he's just having illegal run-in after illegal run-in. So hopefully he can get his life on track. But he's currently on probation for the egging and vandalism back in California from a couple months ago. So the lawyer representing the alleged victim has already notified the LA County Sheriff's Department of the arrest in Canada. So he could lead to a probation revocation.
And Chris Brown, there were a lot of headlines. He was here in D.C. yesterday for his assault charge. What do you make of that?
Yeah, so I mean, he pled guilty to simple assault. So the court sentenced him to time served. He already served 1 day in jail as a result of the arrest, and then they also leveraged a $150 fine against them. We have to remember, though, that Chris already had his probation revoked in connection with the arrest, or he was already sentenced to 5 months of rehab and 3 months in jail. So that probation is slated to end around January 23rd, 2015. That's the probation he was on for the assault of Rihanna back from 2009. So, but he can't get into any more legal trouble, and he has to serve an additional 600 hours of community service. So from now until January 23rd, 2015, he has to go to community service 3 days each week. So that's pretty substantial.
Do judges like to make an example of celebrities who find themselves in trouble? You're talking about domestic violence. It's a big issue in this country. Do they take it particularly more seriously when a celebrity is involved?
It just depends. Sometimes you see celebrities being, set the example on, but other times you see them getting treated more lenient. So it just there's a wide disparity in terms of the level of treatment.
Well, did you think this was more on the lenient side? I mean, here he is on probation, and yet he doesn't get any more jail time. What did you make of that?
Well, remember, he already suffered he already had to go to 3 months in jail and 5 months of rehab, and almost 1,000 hours of community service. So it's a pretty substantial penalty. So I think.
But the community service that he did in Virginia, they decided that wasn't good enough.
Right.
They had to redo it
exactly,
under different supervision out in LA.
So they added more and more hours on. So he's definitely had a number of different hours of yard work and street cleanup and things like that. So he's done a substantial amount of things to kind of right this wrong.
And his publicity doesn't seem to have suffered any.
No, he's already on Twitter announcing a tour coming up. So he's announced he's releasing a new album soon and probably going on tour soon as well.
We don't have a whole bunch of time, but I do want to touch on this. The NFL
Absolutely.
is taking domestic violence very seriously.
Incredibly
as
serious,
a league,
as
they're
they should.
implementing punishments.
Absolutely. So Roger Goodell, the commissioner, announced on Thursday of last week that they're going to enforce new penalties. Basically, the first violation of the NFL domestic violence will lead to a 6-game unpaid suspension, and the second violation will lead to a lifetime ban, which is extremely drastic, but very, very appropriate for the domestic violence crime. So most recently, a football player for the San Francisco 49ers, a guy by the name of Ray McDonald, was arrested on domestic violence charges over the weekend. So he could be really, based upon the investigation, could be the first individual that really suffers the consequences of the new NFL policy.
And could that suspension go into effect before he's convicted, just once he's arrested?
It's based upon the NFL will do their own investigation. So if they find, based upon their criteria of what constitutes a violation of their own internal policy, then he could be suspended based upon their own violation of the
Whether
policy.
You're convicted in court or not.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
Exactly.
And if there's a second offense, the penalties could be, a lifetime ban.
Lifetime ban
right?
from the NFL. He's a great player for the 49ers, so they're going to suffer significant loss if he can't play.
Always good to talk to you. Find out the latest celebrity legal happenings. Attorney John Burns, thanks for coming by.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you.
More coming up here on Let's Talk Live. We'll be right back.